Okay, let's unpack this. What if I told you there's a market out there, one you might not even think about much, quietly growing into a global force? We're talking about something that feels kind of niche, maybe. Yet it's showing truly remarkable, consistent expansion. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the vibrant global goat milk products market. Get ready for some genuinely surprising insights.
Absolutely. And for you, our listener, our mission here is really to cut through all the data, pull out the core story. We're extracting the key insights and the forward-looking projections for this market. We're looking at 2021, going all the way through 2033. And we'll cover the regional breakdown, some really fascinating growth trends. It's not just about the raw numbers. It's about understanding this often overlooked but really powerful growth narrative.
Okay, so to really get a feel for the scale here, let's start with the big picture, the global view. Back in 2021, the whole goat milk products market, it pulled in over $12.3 billion in sales revenue.
Which is already pretty substantial.
Right. Exactly. Now, fast forward just 4 years to 2025, and that's forecast to jump to over $14.8 billion. But the really eye-opening bit is the projection for 2033. We're looking at a market soaring to more than $21.3 billion.
Um,
Yeah. And, this growth, it feels significant, especially when you look at the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR. It's nearly 4.7% globally. What's your initial take on that number? Does that sound about right for this kind of market?
Well, what's fascinating here is that a CAGR of almost 4.7% sustained over more than a decade. For a market many might still think of as niche, that's not just growth. It really points to a deep, steady market integration. It tells us this isn't, some speculative bubble or a passing fad. This is consistent, almost foundational expansion. It's just a pretty profound shift happening in consumer preferences worldwide.
Consistency, yeah, that's a really crucial point. Now, if we zoom in a bit, the real powerhouse of this growth, it's undoubtedly the Asia Pacific region. I mean, this is where we see the most dynamic expansion. It's really pulling the center of gravity for the whole market. So in 2021, the APAC market was already huge, over $6.6 billion. By 2033, the projection is, well, it's over $12 billion.
12 billion, just in APAC.
Just in APAC. And to put that in perspective, our source material highlights that APAC alone is set to represent, well over half of the entire global goat milk market by 2033. How significant is that kind of concentration?
Oh, it's incredibly significant. I mean, if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about it. A single region making up more than half of a multi-billion-dollar global market. This isn't just about sheer volume. It strongly suggests that the core drivers for adopting goat milk,
Mm,
they're resonating most powerfully there.
yeah.
It really makes APAC the undisputed engine, for this market's future.
And it's not just one country either. Yeah, it means its market size is projected to almost double, from just under $1 billion in 2021 to nearly $2 billion by 2033. Then you've got China, another major player, projected to reach over $3.3 billion with a really robust 5.3% CAGR.
Still very strong.
Very strong. And the Southeast Asia region, sort of as a whole, shows a very strong KGR too, nearly 5.8%. And even individual countries like Singapore are seeing over 5.4% growth annually. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, they're all contributing too with solid KGR.
Right.
So this raises an important question. What's actually fueling this widespread, almost explosive growth across Asia Pacific?
Yeah, that's the key question, isn't it? What's behind it? Well, our source material points to three things that are kind of intertwined. First, there's just burgeoning consumer demand. People are becoming more aware of goat milk's unique nutritional benefits. Second, that's linked to broader nutritional trends happening in the region. And third, there's a significant expansion happening within the dairy sector itself. It's diversifying, looking beyond just traditional cow milk. And these factors seem particularly potent in Asia. You've got large, growing populations, an increasing focus on health, maybe alternative dietary choices, and often integrating traditional knowledge about food with a modern understanding of nutrition. That seems to be a key mix there.
That makes sense. So from that incredible momentum in Asia, let's pivot a bit. Let's look at other regions that are also contributing strongly, acting as sort of steady accelerators for the market. South America, for example. It's set to grow its market from just over $1 billion in 2021 to more than $1.8 billion by 2033. That's a solid CAGR of nearly 4.9%.
Right around the global average then.
Pretty much. And within South America, Argentina really stands out. It's got a particularly strong CAGR, 5.4%.
Interesting.
Then The Middle East isn't far behind either. Its overall market is expanding from over $850 million in 2021 to nearly $1.5 billion by 2033. The CGR there is 4.8%.
Again, very steady.
Very steady. And here, countries like the UAE and Turkey, they're showing really high CGRs. 5.3% for the UAE and 5.1% for Turkey. So what do these consistent, near global average growth rates in these quite diverse regions,
Huh.
what does that tell us about the broader market picture?
Well, what these numbers in South America and the Middle East really tell us is that this shift towards goat milk, it's not just stuck in one cultural or economic zone. It seems to be a genuinely widespread trend. These regions are showing growth rates very much in line with that global average we talked about. And that signals, I think, a broad increasing acceptance, an integration of goat milk into diverse dietary habits, different food industries around the world. It's a sort of quiet but persistent spread.
A quiet spread. I like that. Okay, now let's turn our attention to regions maybe considered more mature markets, North America and Europe. Now, their growth rates might not look as explosive as Asia Pacific's, but they're still showing consistent, substantial expansion, often from an already larger base.
Exactly. The starting point is higher.
So in North America, the overall market is forecast to grow from over $2 billion in 2021 to nearly $3.1 billion by 2033. That reflects a CAGR of almost 3.6%. The United States is the biggest piece of that, expected to reach over $2.5 billion. Interestingly, though, Canada shows a slightly higher regional growth rate, 4.35% CAGR.
That is interesting. Wonder what's driving that difference.
Yeah, maybe something to look into another time.
Yeah.
Now, over in Europe, the market generated just over $1.4 billion in 2021, and that's expected to rise to nearly $2.2 billion by 2033. The CGR there is 3.8%.
Again, solid, steady growth.
Definitely. Germany seems to be leading the charge in Europe with a KGR over 4.4%. And other key countries like the UK and Spain, they're also seeing pretty healthy growth rates, around 4.1% to 4.2%. So what does the sustained growth in these, established markets really signify, especially when you compare it to the rapid expansion we saw in Asia?
Yeah, that's a key distinction to make. Even though the KGRs are lower compared to, say, the powerhouse that is Asia Pacific, the absolute growth in dollar terms in these established markets is still very substantial because they start from a much larger existing base.
Yeah.
Right. So even a moderate percentage growth translates into hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars in new sales. So this shows that goat milk isn't just an emerging trend everywhere. It's also solidifying its presence. It's finding its niche and growing steadily, even within mature, sometimes pretty saturated dairy markets. It really speaks to a broadening consumer base, perhaps driven by things like increasing awareness of digestive benefits, or maybe just people wanting to diversify their diets.
Good point. It's growth on top of an already big base.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, let's round out our regional analysis with Africa. Our source material identifies Africa as an emerging growth frontier, sees significant potential there.
Right.
The overall African market is projected to expand from just over $400 million in 2021 to over $718 million by 2033. That's a pretty solid CAGR of 4.2%.
That's still a healthy rate.
Yeah. And within Africa, countries like Nigeria and South Africa seem to be leading the charge. Their CAGRs are 4.49% and 4.78% respectively. So how do we kind of contextualize Africa's growth within this whole global picture?
Well, Africa's growth, while it's currently smaller in absolute dollar terms compared to, say, Asia or North America, it represents a very solid and, I think, promising growth rate. This consistent expansion, around 4.2%, it positions Africa as an increasingly important market in the global goat milk landscape down the line. It likely reflects, evolving dietary patterns on the continent, maybe growing agricultural developments focusing on goats, and perhaps even a return to more traditional food sources in some areas. It definitely signals significant future potential for the industry there.
Okay, so we've toured the globe, looked at the numbers. After this whole journey, what does this all mean for you listening in?
Yeah, pulled it all together. The overarching trend here is just unmistakable, really. It's consistent global growth for goat milk products. And it's happening across an incredibly diverse range of regions. We're seeing KGRs generally hovering, let's say, between roughly 3% and almost 6%. That shows widespread, resilient adoption. And the key drivers, they remain pretty clear. It's evolving consumer demand for different options, growing awareness of specific nutritional benefits like digestibility seems key, and just a broader diversification happening within the dairy sector itself. So look, this isn't just some tiny niche product anymore. It's becoming a genuine segment of the global food economy.
Exactly. And why should you, our listener, care about the goat milk market specifically? Well, because I think it's a perfect illustration of how these specific, sometimes overlooked market segments can show surprising vitality, real significant growth. It reflects these broader shifts happening all around us in consumer preferences and health trends, global economics. The most fascinating stories aren't always, in the biggest headlines. Sometimes the most transformative insights are found in this kind of quiet, consistent growth of unexpected sectors, like goat milk. It really shows us where consumer demand is quietly but powerfully shifting. So just to recap our deep dive today, the global goat milk products market, it's on a very strong, very consistent growth path pretty much everywhere, with Asia Pacific, well, absolutely leading the charge. It's kind of a silent giant on the rise.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you to consider. How might this sustained growth in goat milk specifically impact the broader dairy industry? Or even, agricultural practices, land use, particularly in those booming regions like APAC over the next decade? And maybe think about what other sort of seeming niche markets might be quietly experiencing similar transformative growth that maybe we should all be paying a bit more attention to.
Good questions. Keep an eye on those unexpected corners of the global economy. You really never know where the next truly fascinating story is brewing. Okay, imagine this. A quiet revolution happening right under our noses. It's influencing everything from like baby nutrition to maybe even what you put on your skin. It's a product you might not think much about, but believe me, it's undergoing this incredibly dynamic transformation. Today, we're diving deep into the evolving world of the global goat milk products market, and well, it's far more surprising and robust than you might ever guess.
Absolutely. And our mission here really is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge from all the material we've looked at. We're going to unpack the key drivers, things holding it back, and the really fascinating trends shaping this sector, basically giving you a shortcut to understanding its full potential.
Yeah, we've waded through a fair bit. Reports, research, notes to bring you those surprising facts, those insights. We want to make sure you're really well informed on this quiet but pretty powerful market. So let's kick things off. What's actually powering this growth? Our sources really hammered home the digestive and nutritional advantages of goat milk. For our listeners who probably know a bit about dairy alternatives already, what's maybe the most compelling or perhaps the least understood part of these benefits? What makes goat milk really stand out?
Well, what's truly remarkable isn't just that it's easier to digest, though that's key. It's how this links back to, our long history with dairy. Goat milk, unlike cow milk, has this unique protein structure, smaller fat globules. It makes it almost, you could say, pre-digested. It reduces those common inflammatory responses some people get. And this isn't just a tiny difference. It's a kind of biological compatibility. It's funny, our modern diets are only just rediscovering this as we push for more natural, less processed foods. And beyond that, yeah, it's packed with calcium, vitamin A, essential fatty acids, all things that really resonate with health-conscious consumers today.
That is a powerful distinction, isn't it? So if you're someone out there maybe exploring dairy alternatives or really focusing on nutritional density, those are genuinely compelling points. But okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Goat milk seems to be moving beyond just being a simple alternative. Are we actually seeing it become a functional ingredient now, maybe in some unexpected places?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. It's increasingly linked with anti-inflammatory benefits, even skin health. We're seeing it pop up in premium yogurts, infant formulas, specialty cheeses, and yeah, even skincare items, think soaps and lotions. Consumers aren't just looking for a swap anymore. They're actively seeking out these distinctive, function-focused products. It's part of a much broader health shift. And it really makes you ask, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does this bigger move towards natural, health-boosting diets mean for the future of all specialized dairy?
That's a really critical question, and it highlights how goat milk is showing up, like you said, in places you might never expect, your yogurt, maybe even your bathroom shelf. But okay, as consumers discover this, can the supply side actually keep up? What's happening with the producers? The infrastructure needed?
Right, zooming out a bit, it's not just consumer demand pulling this along. There's also a really significant expansion in goat farming itself. And that's often strongly supported by government initiatives. Countries around the world are actually rolling out financial incentives, rural development programs, specifically to promote goat farming. And goats, well, they're remarkably suited to drier, more mountainous areas, so they're a viable, sustainable option in incredibly diverse regions where maybe cows aren't. Plus, there's growing international interest in goat-based dairy exports. That's helping to scale up supply chains, strategically. It opens doors for new products, wider availability globally.
Huh. So it's not just some small niche trend growing on its own, it's actually being actively supported by bigger economic and agricultural policies. That's interesting. But like any booming market, there have got to be hurdles, right? What are some of the main challenges producers are facing?
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest issues is the increased production costs. And that's tied to underdeveloped supply chain infrastructure in many places. Simply put, goat milk yields are lower, and feed costs tend to be higher compared to cow milk. And what's more, a real bottleneck for scaling up is often that last mile of the cold chain, making sure it stays consistently cool from farm to processing. Because goat milk has a shorter shelf life, any break in that chain, any fragmentation in collection or processing, even just a brief temperature change, can lead to quite a bit of spoilage. This may be less forgiving than the cow milk system.
Right, and those factors directly impact what you find on the shelf and, importantly, the price you pay for it. Beyond those logistical things, though, there's also that perception challenge you mentioned earlier, isn't there? The distinct flavor and aroma.
Absolutely, that's a big one. Without wider education on the benefits and maybe some work on managing flavor profiles, goat milk often stays niche. Cow milk is just so dominant, so familiar. And for many people, that distinct goat milk flavor can be, well, a bit off-putting. It really highlights an important dynamic. How much does deep-seated taste perception shape, or maybe even limit market adoption, even if a product has clear benefits?
It's powerful, isn't it? That almost subconscious thing about familiarity in food. It's often the biggest hurdle for anything new, even if the upsides are clear. So, okay, taste is one challenge. What about the more practical hurdles producers face, like the legal stuff, the logistical nuts and bolts?
Well, the shorter shelf life we talked about is definitely a practical hurdle. In markets that maybe lack advanced pasteurization or processing, spoilage happens faster. And then there's significant regulatory barriers, especially crossing borders, everything from specific nutritional labeling rules to complex dairy import-export laws. These can really stifle growth, especially for the small and mid-sized producers who want to expand beyond their local area.
It's a good reminder, isn't it, how all these complex behind-the-scenes things, from processing efficiency to international trade law, ultimately shape the choices we have as consumers. But let's shift gears a bit. From the challenges to the opportunities. What are the most promising growth areas? What key trends are shaping this market's future?
One of the most significant, I'd say, is the really rapid growth in the goat milk infant formula sector. Its digestibility, its low allergenic profile, these make it a preferred base for baby nutrition for many parents, especially those looking for alternatives. Demand is particularly strong in places like Europe and Asia. You see pediatric endorsements, health studies really driving adoption there. It makes you think, about the potential impact on early childhood nutrition globally. It could be profound.
That is truly fascinating. And beyond infant formula, what other kinds of maybe surprising product innovations are we seeing? What else is out there?
Oh, the innovation is really spreading out,
Wow.
far beyond traditional dairy categories. We're seeing things like goat milk-based ice creams, which can be incredibly creamy, actually. Artisanal cheeses with really complex flavors. Probiotic drinks. And as we touched on skincare products, soaps, lotions, these are positioning themselves as premium offerings. And they're attracting not just people with lactose issues or gourmet foodies, but also a whole new group of sort of lifestyle-oriented shoppers, people focused on wellness, self-care.
Right. So you can really picture this expanding range of goat milk products far beyond just a carton of milk or a block of cheese. And finally, how is technology playing a role here? Specifically, how is it changing accessibility for both the producers and us, the consumers?
E-commerce and direct-to-consumer sales are huge here. They're proving to be real game changers. Digital platforms, farm-to-table models, they're getting serious traction. This lets even smaller dairy producers connect directly with health-conscious consumers, anywhere in the world. It helps them bypass some of those traditional retail bottlenecks we talked about. And this channel, it unlocks amazing opportunities for telling their brand story, building customer loyalty, even offering samples in a way that traditional retail maybe can't. It's basically breaking down geographical barriers for specialized markets like this one.
It's incredible, isn't it, how our own shopping habits, just by choosing to buy online or directly from a farm, might actually be empowering these emerging markets. So, wrapping this up, what's the big picture takeaway here?
I think the main thing is that this market is clearly transforming. It's not just a niche product anymore. It's become robust, multifaceted, and honestly, it has wide-ranging potential. It impacts everything from global agriculture patterns to our personal health choices. And this really raises an important question, something for you to think about. How might these developments in the goat milk market, which might seem niche, actually be a kind of microcosm
a reflection of larger shifts in global agriculture, maybe consumer health trends, sustainable food systems, things you're likely to encounter more and more in the future.